Lizzie Andrew Borden was born on July 19, 1860, in Fall River, Massachusetts, to Andrew Jackson Borden and Sarah Anthony Borden. Her early years were shaped by both privilege and austerity. Although her father was a wealthy businessman, his extreme frugality meant that Lizzie and her family lived modestly, even lacking indoor plumbing in their home, a luxury many wealthy families enjoyed at the time. Before Lizzie Borden was born, her father, Andrew Jackson Borden, led a modest life in Fall River, Massachusetts. Born on September 13, 1822, to Abraham Borden and Phoebe Davenport, Andrew grew up in a family of modest means. He worked as a carpenter and later managed properties owned by his uncle. Over time, he ventured into furniture making, undertaking, and real estate, gradually building his wealth. Andrew married Sarah Anthony Morse on December 25, 1845, and they had 3 daughters, Emma, Alice, and Lizzie. Despite his growing financial success, Andrew had extreme frugality, which would later define his household and contribute to tensions within the family. Her mother, Sarah Anthony Morse, lived a modest life in Somerset, Massachusetts. Born on September 19, 1823, Sarah was the daughter of Anthony Morse and Rhoda Morrison. She grew up in a family of modest means. Sarah's life before marriage was likely shaped by the economic and social conditions of the time. Early family life. Lizzie Borden had an older sister named Emma Lenora Borden, born on March 1, 1851. She was deeply connected to Lizzie, especially after their mother passed away when Lizzie was just 2 years old. Emma took on a maternal role for Lizzie, and the two shared a close bond throughout their lives. The Borden sisters also had another sibling, Alice Esther Borden, who tragically passed away at the age of 2 in 1858 before Lizzie was born. Alice's death was a sorrowful chapter in the Borden family's history. Lizzie's mother, Sarah, passed away when Lizzie was just 2 years old from spinal disease. This loss left a significant void in her early life. In 1865, Andrew remarried Abby Durfee Gray. Lizzie and her older sister Emma reportedly had a strained relationship with their stepmother, believing she was more interested in their father's wealth than in the family. Abby Durfee Gray, born in 1828, lived a modest life before marrying Andrew Borden in 1865. She was the daughter of Oliver Gray and Sarah Sawyer Gray, and her family was of modest means. Abby worked as a housekeeper before her marriage, which was not uncommon for women of her social standing at the time. She married Andrew at the age of 37, which was considered relatively late for marriage during that era. Her life before marriage was likely shaped by the economic and social conditions of Fall River, Massachusetts, where she lived. Education and social life. Lizzie attended local schools and was active in the Central Congregational Church, where she taught Sunday school to immigrant children. She also participated in various church-related social and charitable activities. Despite her involvement in the community, Lizzie's social life was somewhat limited. possibly due to her father's strict and frugal nature. Household tensions. The Borden household was marked by underlying tensions. Lizzie and Emma resented their father's financial decisions, particularly his gift of a property to Abby's family. This resentment created a divide within the family. Lizzie's dissatisfaction with her living conditions and her father's refusal to move to a more affluent neighborhood added to the strain. Lizzie's childhood and early life were a mix of privilege, loss, and familial discord, setting the stage for the dramatic events that would later unfold. Lizzie Borden's dark path. The events leading up to the infamous Borden murders on August 4th, 1892, reveal a household fraught with tension and peculiar occurrences. Here's a detailed timeline of key events before the murders. Months before the murders. On June 1891, a robbery occurred at the Borden home with cash and jewelry stolen. Lizzie was suspected, but she was never formally accused. This incident led to the family keeping their doors locked at all times. In the spring of 1892, Andrew Borden killed pigeons Lizzie had been caring for in the barn, reportedly to prevent them from attracting local boys. This act upset Lizzie deeply. On July 1892, Lizzie and her sister Emma took an extended trip to New Bedford following a family disagreement. They returned shortly before the murders. Days before the murders, on August 2nd, 1892, both Andrew and Abby Borden complained of stomach sickness. Abby speculated they might have been poisoned, but their doctor dismissed the idea. On August 3rd, 1892, Lizzie reportedly attempted to purchase prussic acid, a toxic substance, from a local drugstore, but was denied. That evening, she visited her friend Alice Russell and expressed fears that something bad might happen, mentioning her father's enemies. The night before the murders, Lizzie's uncle, John Morse, arrived unexpectedly and stayed overnight. His visit was reportedly to discuss family business matters, though its timing raised suspicions. In the hours leading up to the murders on August 4th, 1892, the Borden household followed its usual morning routine, but there were subtle tensions and peculiarities. In the early morning, Abby, Andrew, and John Morse had breakfast together. Bridget Sullivan, the maid, was also up early, though she was feeling unwell from the stomach sickness that had affected the household in the days prior. After breakfast, Andrew left the house to run errands in town. He was seen by several people, including a neighbor, as he went about his business. Abby began her usual household tasks, including cleaning the guest room where John Morse had stayed the night before. Lizzie reportedly had a light breakfast and mentioned to Bridget that she might go out. However, she remained at home and her exact movements during this time remain unclear. Bridget was tasked with cleaning the windows despite feeling ill. She spent much of the morning outside, away from the main part of the house. During the murders of Andrew and Abby Borden on August 4th, 1892, Lizzie's older sister, Emma Borden, was not at the family home in Fall River, Massachusetts. Emma was staying with friends in Fairhaven, a nearby town at the time. She had been away for several days before the murders and was not implicated in the events. Emma returned to Fall River immediately after learning about the tragedy and remained a steadfast supporter of Lizzie throughout the trial and its aftermath. The murders unfolded on the morning of August 4th, 1892, around 9:30 a.m. Abby Borden was attacked in the guest room while cleaning. She suffered 19 blows to the back of her head. Bridget Sullivan, the maid in the Borden household, was reportedly cleaning windows outside the house at the time of the murder. Bridget Sullivan, the Borden family maid, testified that she was upstairs resting after cleaning the windows when the second murder occurred. She had been instructed by Lizzie to lie down because she was feeling unwell. Around 11 a.m., Andrew Borden returned home and was killed while resting on the sitting room sofa. He was struck 11 times with a hatchet. After Andrew Borden's death, the timeline of events unfolded as follows. Shortly after 11 a.m., Lizzie Borden called out to Bridget Sullivan, the maid, saying, "Someone has killed Father." Bridget rushed downstairs to find Andrew's body on the sitting room sofa. Around 11:15 a.m., neighbors and the police were alerted. Dr. Bowen, the family physician, arrived and confirmed Andrew's death. Later that afternoon, Abby Borden's body was discovered upstairs in the guest room. She had been killed earlier that morning. Investigation begins. The police started questioning Lizzie, Bridget, and others present. Lizzie's inconsistent statements and calm demeanor raised suspicions. The investigation. The investigation into the Lizzie Borden case was a mix of intrigue, controversy, and limitations of 19th century forensic science. The police initially suspected a male intruder, possibly a foreigner. But this theory was quickly dismissed due to the lack of evidence of forced entry or robbery. Lizzie Borden's calm demeanor and inconsistent statements during questioning raised suspicions. She claimed to have been in the barn during the murders, but investigators doubted this alibi. A hatchet found in the basement was believed to be the murder weapon, though it lacked definitive proof. Lizzie was seen burning a dress shortly after the murders, which she claimed was stained with paint, not blood. The investigation lacked modern forensic techniques like fingerprint analysis, which could have provided more clarity. Arrest and public reaction. Lizzie Borden's arrest was on August 11, 1892. She was reportedly calm and composed, which surprised many. Her demeanor throughout the investigation and trial was often described as stoic, which some interpreted as a sign of guilt, while others saw it as a reflection of her upbringing and social status. Lizzie maintained her innocence from the moment she was accused, and her composed behavior became a focal point during the trial. Her reaction, or lack of visible distress, added to the intrigue surrounding the case. Emma Borden, Lizzie's older sister, was deeply affected by the events surrounding the murders and Lizzie's arrest. While Emma was not present at the Borden home during the murders, she was staying with friends in Fairhaven. She returned immediately upon hearing the news. Emma stood by Lizzie throughout the trial, offering unwavering support despite the public scrutiny and the strain it placed on their relationship. Emma's reaction to Lizzie's arrest was reportedly one of shock and sadness. She believed in Lizzie's innocence and remained loyal to her sister, even as the case divided public opinion. The public reaction to the Lizzie Borden murders, her arrest, and subsequent accusation showcased the societal dynamics and media frenzy of the late 19th century. Reaction to the murders, the brutal nature of the crimes horrified the local community and beyond. The idea of such violence within a respectable, wealthy household was deeply unsettling. People speculated about potential motives and suspects, fueling gossip and intrigue. Early theories included an intruder or someone with a vendetta against Andrew Borden. Reaction to Lizzie's arrest and accusation. Some saw Lizzie as a victim of circumstance, incapable of committing such violence due to her gender and social standing. She was viewed as a refined woman from a respected family. Others believed she was guilty, pointing to her inconsistent statements and peculiar behavior, such as burning a dress days after the murders. Newspapers sensationalized the case, turning it into a national spectacle. Lizzie's trial attracted intense coverage, and her face became recognizable across the country. Legal battle. The trial of Lizzie Borden in June 1893 remains one of the most famous and controversial in American history. The charges Lizzie Borden was charged with the murders of her father, Andrew Borden, and stepmother, Abby Borden, who was brutally killed with a hatchet on August 4, 1892. The prosecution's case was largely circumstantial, as there was no direct evidence linking Lizzie to the crime. The prosecution presented several points to suggest Lizzie's guilt, such as giving conflicting accounts of her whereabouts during the murders, and burning a dress a few days after the murders, claiming it was stained with paint. The prosecution argued it could have been blood-stained. A broken hatchet found in the Borden basement was believed to be the murder weapon, though it lacked definitive proof. The strained family dynamics, particularly over financial disputes and property, were presented as a possible motive. Lizzie's defense team, led by former Massachusetts Governor George Robinson, argued that there was no eyewitness or physical evidence directly tying Lizzie to the murders. Lizzie's social standing and reputation as a church-going woman were emphasized. The defense suggested the possibility of an intruder or another family member committing the crime. Key testimonies: Bridget Sullivan testified about the events of the day but did not directly implicate Lizzie. Alice Russell, who is Lizzie's friend, testified about Lizzie burning the dress, which was a critical point for the prosecution. Medical experts provided details about the time and nature of the murders, but could not definitively link Lizzie to the crime. The jury's decision: after a trial lasting nearly 2 weeks, the jury deliberated for just over an hour before delivering a not guilty verdict. Lizzie was acquitted of all charges, largely due to the lack of direct evidence and societal biases that made it difficult to believe a woman of her standing could commit such a crime. Aftermath: after Lizzie Borden was acquitted of the infamous axe murders of her father and stepmother in 1893, her life took a peculiar turn. Despite being cleared in court, she faced relentless judgment from the public. Lizzie remained in Fall River, Massachusetts, but her reputation was tarnished, and she became a social outcast. She moved into a luxurious home she named Maplecroft in one of the city's affluent neighborhoods. To mark a new chapter, she began using the name Lizbeth instead of Lizzie. Lizzie tried to embrace her new life, indulging in her love for theater and forming friendships with actors, including actress Nance O'Neill. Lizzie Borden and Nance O'Neill shared a fascinating and enigmatic friendship that has intrigued historians and enthusiasts alike. Their bond began in the early 1900s after Lizzie's trial and acquittal. Lizzie, seeking companionship and solace, found a kindred spirit in Nance, who was a celebrated actress at the time. Lizzie admired Nance's theatrical talent and often hosted gatherings at her home, Maplecroft, where Nance was a frequent guest. Their relationship sparked rumors and speculation, with some suggesting it was romantic in nature. However, there is no concrete evidence to support these claims, and their connection remains shrouded in mystery. Lizzie Borden's infamous party is widely believed to have been the turning point in her relationship with her sister, Emma. In 1905, Lizzie hosted a lavish gathering at Maplecroft for her theatrical friends, including actress Nance O'Neill. The event was extravagant by Fall River standards and caused quite a stir in the community. Emma, who had always been more reserved and traditional, disapproved of Lizzie's newfound social circle and extravagant lifestyle. Lizzie's association with the theater world, which was often viewed as scandalous at the time, clashed with Emma's conservative values. The party reportedly brought their simmering tensions to a head, and soon after, Emma packed her belongings and left Maplecroft for good. The sisters never reconciled after Emma's departure, marking a definitive end to their close bond. Lizzie also developed a fondness for animals, particularly birds and squirrels, and supported the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. Despite her efforts to live quietly, she was often harassed by locals, with children throwing gravel and eggs at her house and singing the infamous nursery rhyme. Lizzie passed away on June 1st, 1927, after a year of illness. True to her reclusive nature, her burial was private, with no invitations extended to the public. Lizzie Borden's will, created shortly before she died in 1927, provides fascinating insights into her life and priorities. She left a substantial estate valued at over $250,000 at the time, which included investments, jewelry, and property. Lizzie left money to the city of Fall River for the perpetual care of her father's grave. Bequests to friends and servants, she provided generous sums to her housekeeper and longtime servants, as well as to close friends. Lizzie, known for her love of animals, made provisions for their care. Her sister Emma was notably absent from the will, reflecting their estranged relationship later in life. Lizzie Borden's net worth at the time of her death in 1927 was estimated to be around $250,000, which would be equivalent to several $1,000,000 today. This wealth came from her inheritance after the deaths of her father and stepmother, as well as investments and property holdings. Despite her financial stability, Lizzie lived a relatively isolated life due to the stigma surrounding her after the trial. After Emma Borden's falling out with Lizzie in 1905, she moved out of their shared home, Maplecroft, in Fall River. Emma reportedly relocated to Newmarket, New Hampshire, where she lived a quieter and more private life. Emma lived in seclusion for the rest of her life, avoiding public attention and rarely speaking about the case or her relationship with Lizzie. She passed away in 1927, just days after Lizzie's death. Emma Borden's will provides a glimpse into her priorities and relationships at the time of her death in 1927. Emma left funds for the perpetual care of the Borden family burial plot in Oak Grove Cemetery, ensuring its upkeep. She made specific bequests to friends and relatives, including personal items and monetary gifts. Interestingly, Emma's will included provisions for Lizzie, despite their estrangement. This shows the opposite in sisters. Despite the fallout, Emma still ensured Lizzie was left with something. Lizzie's story remains a cultural phenomenon, inspiring books, films, and even nursery rhymes. Her life after death is marked by the enduring. As we leave Fall River behind, the echoes of that fateful day in 1892 still linger, reminding us that not all mysteries can, or perhaps should, be solved. What do you think happened in the Borden household that morning? Was Lizzie Borden truly guilty, or was she an innocent victim of suspicion and circumstance? Share your thoughts below. If this story intrigued you, be sure to subscribe for more dark tales and historical mysteries. Until next time, stay curious, stay questioning,